Hi there. Hey, happy Friday. I'm Jen Rice, and I wanted to share today a little bit more on the anti-inflammatory subject. I received a question on a video I did, I think maybe a couple weeks ago. Maybe it's been 2 or 3 weeks ago. But she was saying that she's new to anti-inflammatory eating, and she has a condition called global tetany, and that her chiropractor feels that it could have stemmed from Prilosec, which was, the medicine I originally talked about with, that I was taking for heartburn. So she had said that she had been taking Prilosec since 2005. And so I wanted to look up a little bit about tetany because I'm not super familiar with that diagnosis. I, have mostly practiced in dermatology, but recently, kind of transitioned back to a bit of primary care. But I wanted to look up tetany. So, basically what I found is that it's a disorder of increased neural excitability. So that means like the nerves are firing more. And it can be associated with something called hypocalcemia, so low calcium in the blood, right? And basically it can cause muscle cramps of the hands and feet, and also spasms to other parts of the body, as well as to the larynx. Hey, Sharon. Oh, you are awesome. Thank you. The larynx spasm, very concerning, right? So I don't know if Anj is having that or not. She didn't really state what kind of spasm she was having, but larynx spasm can be extremely serious. And so, I got to thinking, how am I going to really answer this well? Because obviously, I don't want to give medical advice. I don't think she expects that. I think she was more looking for, what are you doing anti-inflammatory food-wise with your own journey, right? So, the first thing I would want to make sure of, if this was my friend, family member, just curbside consult, I'd say, make sure that since the chiropractor told her that it was tetany, that is it from parathyroid. So, calcium in the blood can cause your parathyroid, which sits around your thyroid. So the thyroid, sits here, and you have the parathyroid glands around it. And they regulate the calcium in the blood. And oftentimes if you, have an issue of tetany or spasm, it can be in that area. So checking the parathyroid, looking for other electrolyte imbalances, making sure to see, probably I would see an MD or DO that is in functional medicine. If you don't want to see someone, maybe just a regular primary care provider, internal medicine, but I would make sure those are screened before you kind of chase down anything that has to do with tetany or certain treatments. I think this could be, though, very much due to inflammation. One thing I was told was that my angioedema that I had, which was a lip swelling, that I had twice while I was taking Prilosec. It hasn't happened, knock on something, since I stopped taking Prilosec in the end of July of 2017. But I do think the body can start firing all sorts of inflammation around. And one thing my doctor mentioned to me was, she said, it may not even be the medication. It may not even be the Prilosec. Sometimes your body gets so much inflammation, the histamines start firing. So, if you're definitely a sensitive person, maybe you get rashes easily, hives, you eat certain foods, maybe you get eczema, whatever it might be. If you're kind of prone to that sensitivity, this is like times 10. So when the body gets really out of whack, you can start having all kinds of things happen. And so her tetany that she's experiencing, these spasms, and like I said, she didn't really elaborate on what the spasms are specifically, but it could be absolutely due to inflammation, and it can be diet-based. So there are pretty much 8 offenders that I did a video a while back, but I'm good to quickly run through for anybody who is, I know the larynx spasm is actually, that can absolutely induce respiratory arrest. So that is really frightening. I don't know if she's having that, but she did talk about tetany. So I don't know if it's just muscle spasms in the body, the hands or feet. Maybe she'll elaborate at some point, but I don't expect her to, share everything on here, of course. But again, we want to make sure that the blood work and if we're going to mesh Eastern and Western medicine, which I think is important to do, and one doesn't necessarily outweigh the other, but if she takes into these 8 things out of the diet, it can make a big difference. And these were 8 things that I was told to take out of my diet right away and see if it made a difference. And I'm going to be honest and say, it made a difference with me and within like 3 to 4 days. And certainly within 3 to 4 weeks, it was completely transformational for me. And now 6 months later, I've very rarely gone to any of these 8 foods. I wouldn't say never ever, but certainly not much. So let's start with cow's milk. So the idea is to avoid anything with cow's milk because the hormones that are produced in the milk are not really necessarily something that we as humans should be consuming at this point, since we're not children and we're not trying to, stimulate anything within our bodies, right? That's hormonal. Fatty red meats like barbecue, ribs. I'm a big rib fan. I like that kind of food, but I think that you have to be really careful with it and eliminating it if you have any issues at all, and staying away from, fatty burger meat, red meats that are just, basically full of trans fat and hydrogenated fats. And there's been a lot of studies out of the University of California, San Francisco, which links this fatty meats to inflammation within our gut. So cow's milk, fatty meats, cheese. This was so hard. I thought, oh, this is impossible. I must be really desperate to even be able to give up cheese. But I did, and I have. So basically they say 2 days after consuming cheese, the cheese actually rapidly alters the microorganisms in our GI tract. So if you're having inflammation issues, like we're going over the fact that she was talking about having these spasms, this tetany. Okay, cheese, we should probably just throw that out. Margarine, which exacerbates an inflammation response. So no margarine. Processed cured meats, hot dogs, bologna, lunch meats, even the best turkey meat ever on the planet, I still would just get rid of it. If you're going to do it, so this is my thing, and this is kind of my thing with everything. If you're going to do it, just go all in, double down, and just do it, right? Because if you kind of halfway do it, you're never going to really know if this was a fit for you. So I jumped, and I just did it all. So cow's milk, fatty red meats, cheese, margarine, processed cured meats. Okay, this one is where I lose almost everyone, and I hope that she will be able to do the alcohol elimination. I know there are studies that say that alcohol helps us with our cardiovascular system, but really for women, we kind of pack on the sugar calories with alcohol. And I know some people say, oh, well, I just do a vodka tonic or a vodka soda with cranberry. It's all still sugars, right? So elimination of alcohol, especially if she's having inflammation, is going to be key. Vegetable oils, no vegetable oils. And the last one is food additives. So nothing with food additives. And oftentimes you're going to see those in boxed stuff. And guys, I've said 100 times, I'm not a nutrition expert. I definitely someone that had to do my own journey with food and kind of changing my relationship with certain foods. And the 8 ones to avoid are the ones I mentioned. And I know when I started this, if you missed it, we were talking about, I had she's an RN, her name is Anj, and she was telling me that she's really new to anti-inflammatory eating, but she's been diagnosed with this muscle spasm, nerve spasm type of condition. I'm not sure how serious it is. But basically, she's not sure if it was connected to the Prilosec, and we're not trying to start a campaign of, whatever against Prilosec, but we know the proton pump inhibitors. I actually have struggled to find really good information out there on the proton pump inhibitors, long-term safety data. I know some of my friends watching this are more into research, and certainly there's people way more scholarly than I'll ever be. if you know some information about proton pump inhibitors, or if you've seen some scientific cohort studies, that the problem is a lot of this gets buried because there's big money in these medicines. It is 40 million plus Americans suffer from reflux disease. Over-the-counter medications like Prilosec and I guess it's Prevacid, and of course Zantac isn't a PPI but a H blocker. There's big money in this, really, really big money. And so it doesn't mean these drugs don't work for people, but diet could potentially work better. So I hope that if she's watching this, these 8 things to absolutely avoid, I don't think we can say them enough. I hope they're helpful to you. It's a good place to start. My diet was... So I had this Renew Food Plan. I know my mom's going to be like, you should have turned your camera so we can read that. But I'm going to figure out how to do that. But so what it said in here for me was, it is a short-term approach for a specific amount of time to rid the body of the most common foods that cause inflammation, identify food allergies, sensitivities, intolerances, and triggers, eliminate foods with potentially addictive and harmful components, and provide nutritional support for the body detoxification. So when you eliminate those 8 things we talked about, that's kind of the starting point of that detoxification. And then you can kind of dive in more into sugar detoxification and other things. So I think the first step for her anti-inflammatory would be avoiding those 8 things and then dipping more into sugars in general. Yeah, I know. Hey, Diane. Yeah, who would guess that eating healthy would make us healthy? I know. But I was oh my gosh, Triscuits in 1,000 flavors, right? They have like every flavor you can imagine on a Triscuit, and it's just not, that just doesn't happen organically, right? But they are so I don't eat any of those anymore. It used to be with every meal. I'm going to say that, I really was a fan of processed food, but I didn't realize how much inflammation that was causing. So, we kind of have to give up these things. I have seen that there are some really great, there's like apple chips now that I've seen, banana chips. Obviously you have to watch the sugar and all of this stuff. There's chickpeas that kind of are like chips, and, sweet potatoes that they make out of things. So I think it's very hard initially, though, to sort of kind of segue to that. I think for me, I had to go all in and cold turkey for the first 3 months. Like, they ask you to do it for at least 21 days. And then if you go 3 months, I think that would be great. And then I didn't start maybe, I don't know, I guess you call it waffling a bit until I was 6 months in. And then I just didn't really have the taste for it anymore. So I hope this was helpful. If you know someone who, like Anj, was just starting to get into anti-inflammatory eating, share this. Tag them if you think they'll find value in this video. I think it's important to keep the conversation going on this. I've had a lot of just great messages from people. It certainly won't be the only thing I ever talk about, but if you find value in this, definitely give me some comments or share it with anyone that you think may want to be going down this path. And like I said, it's always great to do it with a practitioner, a functional medicine doctor, but not everyone can do that. Not everyone has access to it. So I'm hoping some of this information is helpful to you. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and thanks so much for watching. Take care.